All right. Hello, everyone. So thank you for coming to our elections. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes so more people are able to join around this time. So we'll just give them like 3 or 4 more minutes. All right, hello everyone. Let's get started. So first off, thank you all so much for coming to the election for SASE's 2021 president and vice president for the next year's leadership. I'm really excited to see familiar names on this Zoom call. I can't say faces, unfortunately, because of the special circumstance we're in, but that won't stop us from electing our new leadership for next year and make sure SASE keeps going strong. So this is a really exciting day for our student group. The entire group, I'm sure especially the candidates, have been really looking forward to this for the past few weeks. They've been working really hard for over a semester to be here today to present to you guys their vision and passion for SACE. I have personally seen, I'm sure my board can also attest to the hours of thought they have put into their campaign, their ideas, and this presentation. While still being students and active board members, and we all know being a student is not easy. Therefore, I hope you listen closely to what they have to say and ask thoughtful questions. There's only so much you can say in 15 minutes. I'm sure there's more the candidates would like to share with you guys. Think about what SACE means to you, and as a part of the SACE community, what you would want SACE to be. So this election format will be a 15-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute Q&A for each of the president and vice president pairs. First up will be Derek Zhu and Jasmine Nguyen, followed by Chae Lee and Diane Nguyen. Voting will open up at 6 p.m. If you are eligible to vote, meaning you have attended 2 events in the fall and 1 in the spring, you will receive an email from SUA with a link to vote. Please make sure to vote by the end of Sunday, April 12th. The ballot will close at 11:59 p.m. Also, make sure to apply for a SACE board next year if what you see here interests you. Board is a great way to make new friends, gain a support network, learn valuable leadership skills, and it looks great on your resume. So now I will stop talking and turn it over to the star of today's show, and I'll turn it over to our first president and vice president candidates, Derek Zhu and Jasmine Nguyen. If I can find them.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Just a second, Derek. I need to unmute Jasmine first. Jasmine?
Hello.
Okay. And Chae. Just a second, please. All right, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. I just want to first welcome everyone to our SACE elections. Thanks for coming. My name is Derek Zhu.
I'm Jasmine Nguyen.
And together we want to build a strong community of professionals. First, let's start off with a quick introduction. I'm Derek Zhu, and I'm running for president. I'm currently the SACE Labs co-director, and I'm a sophomore in chemical engineering. During my free time, I have some generic hobbies like cooking and playing tennis with my friends, but one of my more wilder hobbies is I like to build mechanical keyboards.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Nguyen, and I'm running for vice president. I'm currently one of the 2 co-treasurers on board, and I'm a junior in biomedical engineering along with a minor in computer science. At home, I like to play video games such as Fire Emblem and right now a lot of Animal Crossing. But when I'm on campus, I spend way too much money buying bubble tea.
All right, nice. Let's first go over our topics. First, we'll start off with our vision for the future. Next, we'll talk about our goals and plans for SACE, which include professional development, cultural and diversity improvement, and community involvement. Finally, we'll wrap things up with what SACE can do for you.
All right. Let's talk about what building a community of professionals means. Derek and I have a vision for SACE. During our term, we want to expand and bring SACE closer together as a community, and also build professional connections and skills that will make us attractive to companies. SACE Nationals has 3 pillars: professional development, promotion of diversity, and philanthropy. But there's more than just 3 parts of SACE. SACE is strong in both culture and philanthropy. The SACE U of M chapter has won most philanthropic at SACE Nationals for the past 2 years. And while we were at SACE conference, Derek and I were at SASE conference. We were surprised to learn that SASE has far stronger cultural foundation and hosts more cultural events than a lot of other SASE chapters. And while these two aspects are good, it's not everything, and we want to improve all areas equally. It's only when we grow all parts equally that we become stronger as a whole. Just like this plan that we've based our vision on, no leaf is bigger than the other. And by the end of our term, we want SASE to be viewed as the premier Asian group on campus, along with the premier professional student group on campus.
Like how there are 3 main pillars of SASE, there are 3 main pillars for our goals this year: professional, cultural, and community. For professional skills, we want to develop technical skills through SASE labs with focused projects that target specific skills. We want to increase our standing in the STEM community by furthering our relationship with the CSE administration, and we want to build stronger relationships with companies beyond just doing workshops. Our cultural collaborations are some of our strongest events, each with the highest attendance, and we have done a good job increasing the number of these types of events, despite setbacks like our current COVID-19 situation. However, we want to bring awareness to each decision we make for every event in terms of culture, but including but not limited to the types of food we serve and the people and groups we collaborate with. Lastly, community. We want to strengthen our community through increased member interactions with our board to make new members feel more welcome within SASE, and to increase community involvement by enhancing our programs like Taste of SASE and SASE Junior. So let's talk about our programs. The 3 main programs for SASE are SASE Labs, SASE Junior, and Taste of SASE. For SASE Labs, we want to continue projects that impact students directly. This creates more interest in the projects and keeps members directly involved. For example, this year we are building an interactive phone map of the Gopherway tunnels and a smart bike helmet that makes cycling on our roads safer. For next year, we want to bring more structure to our projects by targeting specific skills that members can learn. For example, working on projects that involve coding specifically or other disciplines like mechanical engineering or materials. And lastly, for our end of the year symposium, we want to invite professors and company recruiters. This will give SASE Labs members the opportunity to show off and give them a story to tell during interviews.
Okay. Our 2 other programs, SASE Junior and Taste of SASE, are focused on community development. Derek and I have 2 goals for each of these programs, and we'll cover these goals more in depth in later slides. But our 2 goals are for SASE Junior, we want to increase interactions with members of the high school members and collegiate members, along increasing the structure of SASE Junior through targeting specific skills and workshops. For Taste of SASE, we want to increase mentor-mentee bonding by creating a structured point program, along with implementing monthly themes to help facilitate mentor-mentee bonding and give them ideas of what to do when they hang out. Okay, let's talk professional development. Derek and I have split professional development into 2 parts, internal and external, just like the Mango you see on board. For our hands programs, our professional program is SASE Labs, which Derek covered in the previous slides. But we also want to expand our student network. And so when I begin talking with this, I want you to direct your attention to the figure upper left of this mango. As you can see, this is our attendance data from by collegiate for our events up to before the shutdown for COVID-19. As you can see, CSE comprises over 50% of our attendance. But when you look at the majors, a quick overview shows there are at least over 40 STEM majors, and CSE only has 18. This means that CSE comprises less than half of STEM majors, which means there's a large untapped pool of students that we can reach out to. One of the easiest ways in untapped pools is CBS. As you can see, CBS has only 7.5% of our attendance, but they comprise 8 majors of 8 pure STEM majors, which means it's about 25% of the STEM major population. One of the ways Derek and I want to tap into this is by participating in their student organization fair, as we do with CSE every year, along with beginning to advertise in CBS buildings such as cellular molecular biology. Another way Derek and I want to expand our network is to increase our rapport with CSE administration. This year, SASE co-hosted the CSE Spring Career Fair, and during negotiations, we are glad to hear that SASE is one of CSE's first choices for hosting the Career Fair, and we want to continue to build up that standing. To build up the standing, we want to be part of CSC's diversity initiative, which they have just began this year, along with collaborating with other student groups for professional collaborations. When we collaborate with other student groups, in addition to increasing attendance, we also will give greater negotiating power with companies because they are able to reach more students through our events. Now let's talk external development.
For external development, first we want to standardize our method for approaching companies. Currently, there are no guidelines for when and how to contact companies. First, we'll make this process easier by making a set template for both initial and follow-up emails and have a set schedule for when to follow up with the companies. We'll also focus our efforts at targeting employee resource groups, also known as ERGs, which are communities of employees within a company with shared characteristics and interests. While I was on a co-op at ExxonMobil, I came across their Asian employee resource group, where I discovered that like a college student group, they also volunteer together and care about their community. This ERG funds their local SASE chapter and even does events with them. We can also target these employee resource groups to do collaboration events beyond even just workshops and resume reviews. We want to do volunteering events together and possibly even lunch and learns. This way we can develop both professional and personal relationships with the employees and further incentivize them to fund us.
Let's talk culture development. SASE is in a unique position since as Asians, we're not a minority in STEM. But this doesn't mean that we shouldn't focus on increasing diversity, as most Asians in STEM are East Asians. SASE is open to all Asian communities, so we can increase diversity and awareness by collaborating and bringing attention to smaller, lesser-known Asian communities. One opportunity for collaboration this upcoming semester is our annual SASE Week Culture event. Similar to last year, Chae and I submitted plans to host Curry Night, and Derek and I want to take advantage of this event to collaborate with another student group, since curry is a universal across all Asian cultures, and we want SASE to represent all these Asian cultures. This also leads to another easy way to increase culture awareness, and this is by catering different ethnic foods. This past year, SASE began to branch out by catering Vietnamese foods such as banh mi at our events. Food is a great and easy way to connect people to different cultures, and SASE should take advantage of the wide variety of restaurants available to us in Minneapolis. Additionally, SASE should take greater care with our awareness of branding. While sometimes it's incentivizing to partner with larger student groups in order to draw higher attendance numbers, we should actively pursue collaborations with smaller Asian cultural groups, so in order to increase the awareness of diversity. Since SASE is strong now, we want to stress the importance of increasing diversity than just attendance numbers.
Next, let's talk about SASE's community at the University of Minnesota. Community is important to us because a sense of family creates a more welcoming environment and is the main reason people come back to our events. For these reasons, we want to continue to build and strengthen our community at the U. To do this, we want to add structure to our Taste of SASE mentorship program, but Jasmine and I also recognize that some of us don't have time to be involved in all of our programs, but still want to be a part of the SASE family. We will bring more structure to Taste of SASE through a point program with monthly themes. This will help mentor-mentee pairs come up with bonding ideas and encourage them to hang out in real life. Unless, of course, Corona is still a threat. For those of us who don't want to join a mentorship program, we also want to implement regular SASE study sessions open to all members to offer a low-stress opportunity to hang out with the board and other members outside of an event setting. And of course, there will be snacks. We also want to improve our spring shadowing program by introducing the program in the fall semester to give board members more time to prepare tasks for their mentees. And finally, in the spring semester, we want to host an event that is planned for or voted on by the SASE community. We know this is a difficult idea to implement, but we feel SASE now has the resources to experiment, and we can make this happen.
Along with building our community, we also want to increase our presence in the local community. This can be summarized as philanthropy. Philanthropy is important to SASE because we have won most philanthropic at SASE Nationals for the past few years, but there is room for improvement. We have two branches of philanthropy: community outreach, which is open to everyone, and SASE Junior. As SASE is a STEM organization, we want to focus our community of volunteering to STEM outreach. This means focusing our community outreach to locations such as the Science Museum or volunteering at high school science fairs. SACE Junior is our program dedicated solely to outreach. Currently, SACE Junior works at the Mung College Collegiate Preparatory Academy to encourage high schoolers to go into STEM majors. We want to improve SACE Junior by increasing the awareness of this program and increase collegiate participation. We also want to increase interactions with the high schoolers outside of workshops, such as inviting high schoolers to volunteer together and to build mentee-mentor relationships. Additionally, we want to implement more structure to this program by focusing on teaching specific skills such as coding and design at our workshops.
All right, nice. Let's summarize our platform and connect back to our vision by telling you about what SACE can do for you. SACE in the end is a student organization and wants to help students. In our term, Jasmine and I want SACE to be known as an organization that helps students develop as professionals through SACE Labs projects and an expanded student network. We want to develop a diverse community through cultural collaborations and Taste of SACE participation. We want to build a corporate network by targeting employee resource groups and building relationships with the University of Minnesota administration. And last but not least, we want to get involved in our local community by strengthening and putting a spotlight on SACE Junior. Thanks everyone for listening to our platform. Any questions?
So you guys are muted in the chat, but if you can raise your hand in the chat window, I will unmute you and then you can ask your question.
Jane, your mic is cutting out.
Can you guys hear me clearly now?
Yeah, you're good.
Hello? Okay, yes. Just raise your hand in the chat window and I'll be able to unmute you.
Hey Derek, hey Jasmine. So I just had a question about your plan in regards to contacting companies, employee resource groups. So how do you actually plan on reaching out to a variety of them, since every single company has their own different kind of group? So how do you plan on actually getting a list of each one's contact email or phone number, or just how do you approach that general communication with companies?
Sure. So for our approach to communication with companies, currently we already have a lot of emails for companies, but we can use those contacts to help find or help get other contacts within the employee resource groups. And we can also reach out to SACE members or former members, alumni who currently work at these companies or have parents who work at these companies. Like I know Jasmine's dad works at 3M and is part of the 3M's Asian employee resource group. So we can reach out to parents, we can reach out to alumni, people who interned at different locations, just to get a starting communication going. You have to click participants in order to raise your hand, by the way. I don't know if Jane mentioned that. Thanks for the question, Jerry.
All right, next is Gaurav.
Hey Derek, hey Jasmine. Nice presentation, I really enjoyed it. So I have a couple questions. So I know you guys wanted to include a more diversity of majors in SACE, such as CBS. And I know you guys wanted to also keep SACE Labs focused on a project-based curriculum and focus on technical skills that people can develop in SACE Labs. So I was wondering how you would go about approaching one of the kind of difficulties we have in SACE Labs for the past few years, which is getting more CBS majors involved in SACE Labs, and also what are your views on incorporating more biologically based projects in SACE Labs this year? Because this year we did have some diverse technical skills such as graphic design and coding and stuff, but we had a lot of trouble getting more biologically focused projects in because there was a lack of communication from professors. So
yeah, so like you said, we had some troubles with the biological projects that we had in mind, but also part of that, I think, is part of the reason is, I think, because we didn't have any, or we didn't have very many CBS students that were interested in SACE Labs in the first place. And if we don't have any, and a lot of the students weren't very interested in the biology projects, or that one biology project we had this year. So I think first, if we need to have students who are interested in biology in SACE Labs, and then we can have projects that work with the biological sciences. Also, like you said, it's more difficult, especially with biology and chemistry, where we need dedicated lab spaces. But I think if we have interested students, we can definitely do more biology and chemistry projects, especially since the professors that we were having trouble contacting were the CS professors, while the biology professors were very interested in helping us out.
Thank you. Just one more quick question. So
Mhm.
I know you guys were really interested in inviting more professors and more recruiters to the symposium. In the event that we can't get some of them to come because just of scheduling difficulties, maybe like what happened last year, what do you guys think about perhaps like somehow recording the symposium so we can like send it to them or something like that?
I think recording the symposium is a great idea. So I guess, yeah, we recorded probably similar to how we recorded last year's elections. And yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Great, thanks guys.
Thanks for the question, Scarf.
Next is Jason Shu.
All right, hello. So as the current director of Tata Stace, I'd like to know what your plans are next year. I only heard them briefly. So can you expand on them, like what kind of themes are there, how your point system is gonna work, and just wondering, fall shadowing being promoted in the fall, or the actually shadowing during the fall semester?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we want to keep the shadowing program in the spring semester, but we also noticed that for a lot of the mentees, since we introduced it so late, that some of them didn't have tasks to do because they could only get started almost, I think, a quarter of the way or halfway into the semester. But I feel like if we implement it or advertise it in the fall, it'll give board more time to prepare tasks since we haven't started the spring semester as well. For monthly themes, I know one of the struggles for some of the mentors was coming up with ideas to hang out with their mentees. So we feel like giving themed months, because sometimes we do understand mentors and mentees don't have all the time to hang out, but like once a month, let's say, let's go exercise, get boba, or try this cuisine or do this event. Give them ideas to hang out and like encourage them to hang out as well.
Okay, and the point system?
Oh, the point system. I know this year we started the point system, but I think you started about halfway through the semester, and it was we personally saw that it was difficult to use because we started late and not everybody was invited to the Facebook group. So we feel like if you give structure and like plan out the point system beforehand, it would also encourage people to participate because, well, as in CSE, we all a little competitive. And so like giving some competition and like giving an incentive or like maybe a prize at the end will encourage mentors and mentees to hang out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Cody. Cody?
He typed it in chat because I'll read it out, or he has some noise going in the background. I can read it out. Cody says, hi, I have a lot of noise going on at home right now, so I can't use my microphone at the moment. Great presentation. I want to ask you more about how are you going to involve CBS students this year? As SACE Junior Director, I also wanted more CBS involvement. I reached out to multiple CBS newsletters, but wasn't able to get any involvement. All right, great question. So part of the, there's more. Also, as a CBS student, I think SACE is not very well known. Jasmine, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. We also realize the fact that CBS is not very well known since they make up a small portion of our event attendance. And one of the ways we want to increase event is advertising in CBS buildings. So we mostly target CSE buildings. So like I mentioned, beginning to put flyers or like advertise in CBS buildings like cellular molecular biology. And we also want to work okay, I'm kind of like staring out. But to increase CBS involvement, just like we work with CSE administration, we want to work with CBS administration. So we work with CBS newsletters. I think contacting the college directly and seeing if they have an organization fair like CSE would be a great way to advertise us as a student group, because we do draw in a lot of numbers during organization fair in Welcome Week. Additionally, maybe we begin collaborations or partners with CBS student groups, because another way we get our name around in SASE around in CSE is collaborating with other professional groups like SHIP. And if we start collaborating with CBS student groups who already draw in mostly CBS students, we can also tell them, make them more aware of SASE.
All right,
nice.
Thank you, Cody. Next up is Tiffany.
Oh, hi guys, great job. I thought it was a wonderful presentation. It's very nice. So I was pretty removed from SACE this year, so I'm sorry if my questions are not quite there. But my first question, something that really stuck out to me, was how the balance between professional, community, and I forgot the last one, but I did like that triangle aspect. The one thing that I have a question though is, I know that a few years back, I think that was something that we had tried to do in SACE, was to put less emphasis on the cultural aspect and try to raise the professional side. And because of that, we saw our numbers maybe not rise as much as we wanted to, and we saw our cultural tier kind of take a hit. And I just want to ask your plans next year for professional and community. Do you think that will affect your attendance numbers? Are you okay with taking a hit to your attendance? Or do you actually have plans to continue to grow that?
I think strengthening all aspects of, or all our core aspects are good. I know like some of our professional events especially we don't draw on as many we have lower attendance numbers than like our Halloween event, for example, or cultural collaborations. And I think it's important not to leave out the professional aspects, especially since as SACE is a professional organization and we do want to help our members prepare for the professional world. So I think it's okay if we have certain events that we know are just going to be lower attendance, if they target specific parts of our core aspect or core foundation.
Okay, and I guess as a follow-up, this is something that SACE struggles with, I would say, every year, just bringing in a stronger professional side. How do you envision, you mentioned standardizing the reach out process and whatnot. How much of an impact do you think they'll have on our corporate sponsorships, and how much of an impact do you think they'll eventually have on the members of SACE?
Currently for corporate sponsorship, money-wise, I'm not sure, just because I know a lot of companies had and a lot of ERGs here too got their funding cut because of the current situation and how how all companies are struggling a little bit financially. So I'm not sure if we will be able to get more funding, just because a lot of these ERGs have their funding cut. But I definitely think we can do more volunteering events. Like I know like Exxon, for example, we do marathons and stuff. And I think it'd be fun if we were able to do volunteering events or fundraising events like marathons or other things like that with these companies, to build a better connection with them for future years when they do get their funding back.
Okay, thank you. I really like the example. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany. I have a question regarding just your general leadership style. How would you say you deal with conflict? For example, when a board member or a group, part of the board, disagrees with something you want the entire group to do.
Okay. So if a certain portion or uh, first of all, if a large majority of members disagree with something that I think may be a good idea, if I strongly think it's a good idea, I'll still try to support my own ideas and still try to convince the board. But at a certain point, I could be wrong in some, or I will probably be wrong in some aspects. So I will still try to listen to the board and take their advice. Um, if it's a smaller proportion, if it's like a smaller proportion, I will still try to stick with my idea, but maybe modify it more to help compromise between the two groups to try and ease the tensions between board.
And you, Jasmine?
I agree with Derek. If it's a large majority, I'll probably reconsider the idea and work to modify it. But I also noticed on this year on board, we had some ideas where we didn't all agree. And I think a great way to just like air out the problem is just to talk it out, because when a few board members disagreed with an idea, one example I could think was how to settle like a tiebreaker for election voting. We didn't agree at something at first, and then we had to go, I think, 2 more board meetings, but we managed to talk it out and come to a resolution in the end, which I think fit everybody. Because when there is a conflict like this, it usually happens from more complicated events or problems, and so having more discussion will help, as I think it lets us come to a resolution that makes everybody happy.
All right, thank you. I also have some questions from the other 2 candidates. So first question I will ask, with Derek being an upcoming junior in chemical engineering, deemed the busiest year in one of the hardest majors in CSE, and Jasmine pursuing rigorous graduate courses in biomedical engineering, how will you both make sure that your time and effort between your academic responsibilities, SASE, and self-care are balanced without getting burnt out?
Yeah, for sure. So one major thing for me and what I found is that SACE is really like a great way for me to relax even at sometimes. Just talking with people, talking with my friends, being involved in SACE has really helped me stay not burned out counterintuitively. Um, so yeah, being more involved in SACE, I think will help me in my academics as well, and just staying motivated, staying healthy. And from a time aspect, I think I know I'll be able to handle it for coursework and everything else. So yeah, Jasmine.
Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna be as busy in senior year as I ever will be in junior year. Not gonna lie. But I am very aware of this problem that I'm pursuing a little bit more, such as trying to get a master's degree next year. And I've made a conscious effort that I've dropped out of a lot of my clubs and activities to make room for SACE. And also, like Derek says, SACE has actually never been like I've never felt like it was a time commitment. Even if I'd had to put in like over like 10 to 20 hours a week for some weeks, it helps me relax, and I prefer doing SACE over a lot of my other schoolwork. And as a junior, I feel like being treasurer was a lot of legwork at the beginning of the year. And during those crunch periods, I made it through it. And I feel like it's not going to be as big of a problem senior year, since I've actively made an effort this time. And I know the expectations and the workload coming on.
Okay, thank you. Does the audience have any questions at this time? Okay, I can ask some more questions from the other team. So this is another question from them. Bringing change to the dynamic of doing things will be challenging upon both you guys and the future board. How will you plan to bring up morale of the board to productively implement these changes?
Okay, so the question was how are we going to motivate the board to make changes in SACE?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Okay. So one of the biggest things I think that helped me be motivated to work on SACE more, especially was our board bonding trips, especially going out to the apple orchard. And things like that were really fun, and I think really helped me become more involved in SACE and want to spend more time in SACE. So I think more board bonding is a great way to keep motivation levels high. In order to encourage change, I think change is sometimes seen as like something scary, but I think it shouldn't be seen that way. It should be seen more as something that's iterative, and instead of putting our changes forward as lots of big changes, which I know it seems that way in one of these presentations, but I think putting forward more smaller but iterative changes that seem less intimidating is a great way to keep the fear of big, large change and to keep motivation levels high.
I also agree with Derek that board bonding is a great way to keep up motivation. Talking to a lot of board members, as you mentioned, community keeps people motivated and like coming back to our events, and community among board members also keeps morale high as we feel we build up each other. I've also talked to board members that all of us join board because we have some sort of investment in SACE. And I feel like if you're implementing change and the board members can see that'll make SACE better, they're not going to like demotivate themselves or like become a dead horse. They'll actually bring themselves up to the challenge. Additionally, while working at like this year's dynamic for SACE, I feel like it's like lead by example, because one of the things that motivated me this year was that when I saw everybody around me on board working so hard, it motivated me to work harder as well. Like I've realized like everybody had to put in their part to make it work, and I didn't want to be the one that wasn't contributing.
Okay, thank you guys. We are unfortunately at time here. So if you guys have any further questions for the candidates, feel free to reach out to them and ask your questions. But we do need to move on to hear the next two president and vice president candidates' presentations. Thank you, Derek and Jasmine, for your presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Diane Nguyen and Chae Lee. Chae and Diane, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sounds good. All right, ready whenever you guys are.
So, hello, my name is Chae Lee. I'm currently running for the presidential candidate, as the president candidate for the 2020 to 2021 SACE presidential campaign with Diane Nguyen.
Hi, I'm Diane Nguyen, and I'm running for vice president with Chae Lee.
So this is just our agenda for today. First, we'll do introductions, and then we'll go into the vision that we have for the 2020 to 2021 school year. And then we'll go into our plan of action. So we've divided this up into two parts. First, we'll go into internal expansion, which will focus on our cultural pillar. And then we'll go into our external expansion, which will focus on our professional and outreach pillars. And then we'll do closing remarks. And so as mentioned before, my name is Chae Lee. I'm currently a chemical engineering major and also currently the co-treasurer to SACE. My favorite quarantine activity so far has been cooking Korean food, or at least learning how to cook Korean food.
Hi, I'm Diane Nguyen. I am a mechanical engineering student, and as of right now, I'm the marketing director for SACE. My favorite quarantine activity is playing the new Animal Crossing on the Switch. It's really fun, and I'm really addicted. So, in summary, our vision, we want to not only expand upon what SACE UMN has already achieved in diversity, innovation, and community, but we also want to solidify our connections with you all, corporations, and the community around us.
So this is the breakdown of our vision. The flags represent SACE UMN. The three green bubbles are our three pillars, cultural, professional, and outreach. And the blue bubbles are the end goals that we have for each pillar. And so internal expansion is expansion that is specific to the UMN campus. So this is why the cultural bubble is inside of the flask. And so end goals that we have for our cultural pillar is to have more Pan-Asian representation, as well as grow and encourage interpersonal connections. Moving on to external expansions. External expansion would be outside of the UMN campus. So this deals with corporations or SASE Junior. And so for our professional pillar, we hope to increase and retain sponsors. And then for our outreach pillar, we hope to have consistent communication and long-term involvement with the Hmong College Prep Academy.
All right, so let's start with our internal goal of cultural representation. So within SASE, we highly value and appreciate the diversity represented in our chapter. With the university being a predominantly white institution, it's important to us and for SASE to raise awareness and empathize with the struggles and successes of Asian people in STEM. It's important that we are allies to our community by combating the model minority stereotype and advocating for underrepresented Asian communities. So to implement our goal of expanding that cultural representation, our initiative is to team up with cultural student groups in the Pan-Asian continent, which can promote diversity and educate students not only about the East Asian culture, but also for those who are underrepresented in the media and on campus. By doing so, we can recruit Pan-Asian students from the exposure of our group. In the past, we've collaborated with groups like J Cafe, CCIA, the Indian Student Association, and the Lao Student Association. We hope to expand these collaborations to a wider network of student groups representing the continent of Asia. Forming strong interpersonal relationships is also a really big goal for Chae and I. We both want the culture of SASE to embody a welcoming atmosphere, but we do know that our events can get pretty hectic. We both personally want to make an effort to be able to chat with you all. So next year, we will strongly encourage our future board to put themselves out there and get to know event attendees, as we will definitely do the same. The more we get to know you all, the better we will be able to support you.
Additionally, having corporate sponsors is an integral part of a professional student group. Some benefits that you can have from having corporate sponsors is that they offer us connections to increase our network as well as support, and they increase career opportunities for our students. Some of the ways that we were thinking about allocating our sponsorships is by funding SASE Junior to support local underrepresented high school students, as well as to fund projects for SASE Labs, but also to fund better lunches for their weekly meetings to encourage more students to come out. So how can we do this? One way that you can do this is by reaching out early in the fiscal year. In simpler terms, a fiscal year is just a budget year, and the budget year typically starts in the middle of the year. As you can see by the timeline, for a fiscal year that starts on July 1st, final allocation decisions are made by September. So that means if you can reach out just a month earlier before these final decisions are made, it significantly increases our chances of getting a sponsor. I like to refer to a case study of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, also known as SHIP. SHIP was really adamant about implementing this change, sending out their corporate sponsorship package by August, and the improvements were shown. They were able to gain 4 corporate sponsors. If we're able to implement this same change for SASE, Diane and I, our goal is to have 5 corporate sponsors as well as 4 corporate events with these sponsors. And so as you can tell by, it really gives us a lot of guidance and connections to collaborate or even just look at other professional student groups. Another goal that we have for our professional pillar is to keep in touch and retain our sponsors. One way that we are thinking of doing so is by implementing a corporate newsletter. So this just keeps SASE's name in their inbox, and it also will be sent to companies who are connected to the SASE UMN students. So these are students that had internships, full-time offers, or maybe their parents worked there, etc. Diane and I made a mock-up of how this newsletter would look. So first it would start with just a letter from our chapter introducing us, but also thanking them for their interest and appreciating them for their interest as well. And then we would go into different aspects of SASE. So here we have SASE Labs, a cultural event, and SASE Junior. But as you can see, the important part is that all of these descriptions, they end with a call to action. And so that means that it says that you can help sponsor innovative projects. You can help make events that foster diversity happen. You can help underrepresented local high school students. It really is important to have that final call of action to ensure that we are persuading companies and not just sending out a meaningless newsletter. And so we would end it then with a final call to action that says your company can make a difference through us, through SASE, by sponsoring us. And so that really just hits home that persuasion aspect, but also sending this out consistently does help us keep our name in, just keep helping us reach out to them.
So our biggest and final goal for SASE relates to our program, SASE Junior. Now, you may be wondering, what is this? What does it do? It's a program that our chapter founded in 2014, where we partner with a Hmong College Prep Academy to mentor students and inspire them to pursue STEM fields where they might not have the resources or the support or the funding to do so. Some things we've done with them in the past have included a pen pal program, a robotics team, and coding workshops. So why is SASE Junior so important to us? SASE UMN has been nationally recognized for our heavy involvement in philanthropy. We've won the National Award for Most Philanthropic Chapter for 2 years in a row, and we would love to continue our strong philanthropy impact through SASE Junior. Additionally, it's incredibly important for young students to see themselves represented and be supported, and even if we can make a little bit of a difference, it will mean a lot.
So how can we expand SASE Junior? One of the ideas that we had were to hold semesterly events with the Hmong College Prep Academy. And we actually brought up this idea with Mr. Granchalek. Mr. Granchalek is our point of contact for HCPA, for SASE Junior specifically. And so we had multiple meetings with him, and some ideas that we discussed about the semesterly events was having SASE Labs come in and show their projects about if they did it maybe the previous year or the current year, depending on which semester that we would hold this event. And this is just a more engaging way for high school students to learn more about STEM and to keep encouraging them to pursue STEM fields. However, these events need to be planned 2 to 3 months earlier with full board communication. This means that this is not just the SASE Junior director making these events. These events need to be made with a dev team and with consistent communication every week to the board so that we are all on the same page about what is happening in SASE Junior. This would also involve the PVP also attending as many meetings as we can with Mr. Granchalek so that we can better lead our board. Another thing that Mr. Granchalek told us really needs our support is their robotics team. So this is something that they decided to start up. And he said that they really need a lot of mentorship and funding for it. And so I believe that attending those meetings every other week would be really helpful to them and would be really meaningful to these students who are trying their best just to have a club. Also, we hope to start up pen pals by the 2nd month of school and also to market it to HCPA through one of our semesterly events. Finally, I'd like to mention that Mr. Granchalek told us that consistent involvement and communication really is the key to ensuring that we are making a change in these students' lives. That consistency is really needed from us to really impact them. And so that is something that Diane and I are really focused on ensuring this school year for SASE Junior. And so to our closing remarks, these are 2 mountains. The first mountain has the community, corporations, the board, and the GA all separated because we do all work on our own. However, what brings us together and really truly makes us the SASE UMN chapter is our striving to uphold the 3 pillars, which is cultural, professional, and outreach, as well as our 3 programs, SASE Lab, SASE Junior, Taste of SASE, along with all of the events that we hold. This is really what makes up the SASE UMN chapter and really makes us successful and really brings us together. And so the most important thing to bring together all of these different aspects is solid communication. And so as your president, I will be present and involved in implementing all of these changes, as well as supporting these programs to the best of my ability to ensure that they are running to the best of their ability. And so I will also strive to ensure that SASE UMN is a successful chapter as well as a solidified chapter.
And as your vice president, I will be here to support each and every one of you in all ways that I can, and especially to emphasize on communication to make sure that everybody has a voice and that they're able to express their questions, comments, or concerns to make this chapter the best it can be.
And together, we hope to accomplish these goals. And with these implementations and your support, we will ensure that SASE UMN will grow beyond its potential. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will be taking questions from the viewers.
Okay, Tiffany.
Hi guys, really nice presentation. That was really nice. So my question, I have a few questions, but my first one was one of your focuses was on talking to event attendees more during events. And again, this is something I think SACE has always kind of struggled with, but what do you think really is the root cause of this issue? Why every year we have this problem? Why is it that we're not able to reach out to as many people during events as we can? And how do you plan on increasing that involvement?
So I think personally, we've been kind of like expected to kind of keep within our own selves, and it is really hard to put yourself out there and get to know new people, especially when I guess the stereotype is that we should just kind of like keep to ourselves, stay where we are. So it can be nerve-wracking to stray away from the familiarity of whoever you already know. But what we plan to do is to lead by example, where if Chae and I, if we both kind of step out of our comfort zone and begin to reach out to event attendees and kind of push that, I think that it would be an example for the board to follow, as well as we could, and we could also like encourage verbally with within the developed team meetings and the event planning.
I also believe that this issue isn't really addressed at board meetings a lot. And this is probably because this year the board was so big. But if we keep addressing this issue, but also encouraging our board members to come talk to GA with us, would be a really effective change in this dynamic.
Okay, thanks guys. I have actually one more question, sorry. This one's more related to the corporate side of things, and I keep bringing up the past, I'm sorry, but what you mentioned was your plan was to get your corporate relations to reach out earlier, and again, I think this is something that we try to do every year. So what, again, I guess the same question is, what do you think is the root cause of this? Like, why can't we reach out earlier? Why do we struggle with this? And how do we plan on combating that?
I think that the root cause of it is that we always think that we have a chance after, like, even if we don't reach out early enough, we always kind of had these corporate sponsors, and even reaching out later, we were still able to have professional events. However, I think that it's better for us to not rely on that past information, but to instead implement this new change and really see how much further can we get by implementing by being adamant and intentional and sending this corporate sponsorship out by August, making that a very strict deadline for all of us, and making that very clear to the board, because we can't just keep relying on past data where we did still have professional events, of course, but we would have even more, or we would have even better chances when we make it our intention to have it out by August to all of our contacts.
Yeah, and also I think, especially with transitions, it could be very difficult for the corporate relations officer, if they're new to the board, to really find a cycle and find a routine of really how to do things and how to get things right, and that does take a lot of time to figure out. And usually when they do figure it out, it's past the deadline for the fiscal year. So I think it's up to the PVP to kind of step in and really help them and assist them with whatever our vision whatever we want it to be, so that in the end it's successful. Yeah. And that's
Okay.
what. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next up is Cody.
Oh, it's a text.
Mhm.
Should I read it? Or should you read it or something?
I can read it for the group. Awesome presentation, guys. I am really excited for your SACE Junior plans for next year, and I wish I had the support network you have been planning. My question is this. One of my biggest hurdles with SACE Junior was that it was difficult for me to connect with the students. I learned that many students have big stressors on their mind, tough financial situations, tough situations at home, figuring out how they will support their family in the future, etc. College is expensive and not affordable for many students. How will you convince these students that STEM and ultimately SACE involvement is important for them?
I think that being involved, taking the first step to be involved in SACE will open up a large window for a lot of other opportunities, such as scholarships, outreach of mentors, and just a network of people that they could rely to and come to if they need some advice for those stressors. Because I think not only we provide kind of like ration and like academic mentorship to them, we could also kind of be there for them in like their life too.
I also believe that this kind of issue was brought up to Mr. Granchilek by us, to us as well, when we were discussing some of our plans with SACE Junior with him. And really our ultimate goal in SACE Junior is not to send these students off to college, right? That we can't really force them to do that depending on the situation they're in. Our goal is to really encourage and show them that they can do more, and that that STEM is not something that's out of their range. STEM is something that everyone can do, and with a little bit of encouragement and mentorship and funding, this is accessible for them. And so I believe that just having consistency, showing up every other week, or even just video calling them if we can't make it physically every other week, really is what's going to set the tone for how are we going to impact these students. Because I definitely do relate to their struggle as well. College is expensive. I did not grow up in an affluent situation, but this is a situation where they are discouraged, and we are there to encourage them. And that should be the main goal for SACE Junior. To me.
All right, thank you. Next up, Will has a question.
Hey guys, great presentation. During your presentation, you guys talked a lot about SACE Junior and your plans, but I didn't hear too much about your plans for SACE Labs or Taste of SACE. Could you guys elaborate more on what your plans are for those programs?
Yeah. So the reason why we didn't really focus on it in our presentation is actually just because we believe that SACE Labs and Taste of SACE is having a really great start due to the foundation that was set this year. And we believe that just giving them the constant support that they need is what would make them as successful. I think some changes that need to be implemented to SACE Labs is that we need to market it a lot better and a lot earlier, and market it more as a technical skill. Like you can build technical skills by and make your own projects throughout the year, rather than just kind of like a program within SACE that does projects. I think it would be a lot more appealing to students to kind of hear that and show that they can put it on their resume and such. And for Taste of SACE, I think that giving them the proper funding is always the most important part. With the proper funding this year, they were extraordinary and were able to get a lot of members, but also just keeping every mentor, every board member responsible as well is a big part of our plan for each program, is keeping everyone responsible and also really having consistent communication in the board.
Thank you, guys.
Next up, Gaurav has a question.
Hey guys, great presentation. Thanks for those explanatory comments on SASE Labs. So from what you said, by referencing this year, I'm assuming you want SASE Labs to be operating more of a project-based basis for next year as well. Although I did like your point about SASE Labs being more involved in SASE Junior, like having more outreach that way. So on that point, I had a question. So how do you see SASE Labs being involved in SASE Junior? Like what do you kind of see our members doing? Because I know a lot of the projects we do in previous years either get dismantled or they aren't very conducive to like a classroom teamwork kind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see SASE Labs being more involved in outreach through SASE Junior?
So the way that I was thinking about it, or I'm sure Diane, I discussed this with Diane as well. The way that we were thinking about it is that SASE Labs, because it's a big technical skill builder, you guys make really cool projects. And so these are just like showing these projects to high school students are just more engaging in general, because they can try out a VR set or they can try on the helmet. It's a lot more engaging for these students to, and it's also more tangible for them. It's like, oh, they made this, so I could be a part of this. Really, that kind of encouragement. Diane, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, we definitely would encourage SASE Labs to be a part of that outreach to inspire those students. But again, it's a completely voluntary thing. We're not going to force people to participate, especially if you don't have any time. Like, we would respect that, but our end goal is to definitely kind of incorporate that the student-made project thing to show students that it is possible for them to achieve the things that we have done.
Thanks, guys. Also, just one more question. So this year, as a result of the outbreak, a lot of our events got canceled. And I think part of being president is being able to respond to all these kind of unforeseen changes. For SASE Labs specifically, a lot of our members worked really hard on our Gopher app stuff and our bike helmet, but unfortunately they weren't able to hold a symposium this year to show what they had done. So we're probably going to be moving it to next year or something like that. If something like that happens in the future, which isn't like a huge possibility, but might happen, do you guys have maybe any backup plans that you might want to fall back on? This year we discussed holding a virtual symposium, stuff like that, or would you kind of more leave it up to the directors? What are just kind of your thoughts on that, I guess?
Oh, okay. So for me, I think virtual is always a good option because it's always readily available to most people. However, I think that it would be best to also postpone it. I would probably discuss this with the SASE Labs directors because it is a lot different virtually than when you're in person and you see these students, like they're presenting about the work that they did. It's a lot different in person. And I think that the SASE Labs symposium, it can always be postponed because it's not very semester involved. As long as you still have your projects, we can still hold this symposium, and maybe even the symposium would be even better because we can add more projects that you worked on in the current year to that. So I always think it's a good idea to postpone symposium and have it in person, but of course this would also be talked out with the SASE Labs directors and see what they're thinking about and see what the general consensus is of the SASE Labs program is.
I think it's just a shot in the dark, but I think it could be a good idea to kind of showcase the projects that you guys worked on this year to kind of recruit people for next semester and next year, kind of as both a kickoff and like an introduction type of event, so that your projects will be able to be showcased, and also a lot of people would get inspired by what you guys have done.
All right, those are great ideas. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So I have 2 questions. One is from the other team. So what is one leadership experience you had before, and how will you use that experience to help you lead SASE?
Oh, are you gonna?
No, you can go first.
So I think for me personally, being in the board of SASE was a big first step from high school to here, because back then I was really shy and I was really kind of kept to myself and just afraid to step out. But now, after in college and joining SASE, I feel confident in being able to speak up with and voicing my thoughts, and both encouraging people to kind of show their best, and also to form that bond and that interpersonal relationship with them to be able to get through to foster that productivity.
And as for me, of course, I learned a lot from SASE. However, I was also fortunate enough to be on a different board this year for KSA, Korean Student Association. And I think that KSA was a very rocky experience compared to SASE. But I actually gained the most leadership experience there, especially seeing how my president, the president of KSA, really tried to keep up with a board that didn't seem to really know what they were doing. And so I think I learned a lot about patience, really effective communication, holding people accountable, those aspects. And I plan to bring what I learned from KSA and SASE. SASE was more organizational skills, where KSA was more of those soft skills, and I will bring them to the table as the president to really enforce those.
Thank you. My question is regarding your leadership style. So how would you deal with conflict? For example, if a board member or a group of the board might not agree with an idea you propose, how would you work through that?
Yeah, so as the president, I believe it's really important to listen to everyone's opinions, but to also be able to make that final decision. And I think that it's always a good idea if I know that not everyone is going to agree or want to do stuff. And so always making that kind of pros and cons for all of the board to put in and see what were they thinking? What are you guys thinking about this idea? And then we can see from like a visual standpoint, what is the good things about this and what is the bad things about this that are generated from the board, and a decision should be made from there. And I think that that's just the best way to get everyone's opinions in a more efficient manner, as well as make a decision that is fair in that aspect.
Yeah, I agree with Chae. Being vice president, I guess my job is to primarily keep the board morale up and have everything get along well. So for me, I would definitely emphasize letting everybody's thoughts and opinions, as Chae said, to be considered, and that we'd be able to kind of logically and civilly come to a conclusion that respects and considers everybody's opinions.
Thank you. And then last question, I'll hand over to Tiffany.
Hi guys, sorry, I have another question. So now my question is more focused. I guess it's in the same vein as Jane's question actually, but based on your presentation, it seems that a lot of your, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of your leadership seems to be like holding down the fort type of leadership. Like if things really go wrong, we're here, we're your dependable leaders, we got you. But in that sense, I'm just a bit curious as to what the power dynamic then between the two of you would be like. Like, how would you manage to do that together if things really do go wrong? If someone's not doing their deadlines, are you just going to do it for them? So that's just something I want a little bit more clarity on.
How I would like our PvP relationship to work is that we are working as a team. Like I see personally in any student group that president and the vice president, it's not like the president holds more power, is that the president and vice president are working together to bring up the whole team, right? And so for me, I would really want Diane and I to to kind of have be able to talk to each other about what we're thinking based on this person, but then reaching out to them together as well. I don't want it to all just be on Diane because she's the vice president and works with interpersonal. I think it's important to address the facts and address the situation. And I also think it's important to hold people accountable for not doing their job or their work. And sometimes it might just be a personal issue that they just aren't open about talking about, or sometimes it's just that they're lazy and they don't find any value in doing it. And those issues we need to address because that brings down the board dynamic immensely. And I've firsthand saw this year, is that when you have even just one board member that isn't doing their work or doesn't want to do their work, it just brings down a whole skew of people. And so I think that Diane and I will be adamant about communicating to that person, but also holding them accountable, saying like, you made a commitment and we need you to be able to do this, or some I think some sort of penalty or consequence should be mentioned as well, because it's really not good for the board dynamic if we just have a one kind of black hole. Any thoughts, Diane?
I agree with what you said.
Okay. Then a really quick follow-up. I guess this may be getting really into specifics now. But then in that case, who would kind of be the first responder, I suppose, who's going to, like, if you notice an issue, is there going to be like a designated person to kind of follow up on it right away, or is it just whoever notices it first? Is there someone who's going to make us kind of like the face of like, hey, I think you need to clean up your act kind of thing?
I think with both Chae, we're both comfortable communicating with each other. So I think it's in the case that whoever spots it first, and then we discuss it with each other, and whoever feels, the most comfortable with bringing up that fact with that person, they would be able to just take that role. I don't think there's really a designated thing that each person has to do. It's like, again, like Chae mentioned, we're a team and we'll work as a team. So in that case, like, again, whoever would feel comfortable and would want to do it, will do it.
Yeah, and as for the following up with that person, because that is always important, I think that I would ideally want Diane to do it because she is the vice president and she is going to be in charge of kind of board relations and communications and such. And but in the matter that she feels uncomfortable doing it, I would always be willing to take it up, or maybe we can do it together, kind of approach them together and ask them, hey, are you doing okay? Is everything following through from our last conversation? And I think that would just be the right way of approaching the conflict.
Okay, then in the same vein, I suppose, sorry, I'll make this fast, but if, say the worst case scenario really happens, no matter what you do, you're not getting through to your board members, do you take like a fight or flight response to it? Do you drop the project, or do you, I guess, find someone else to do it, hire someone, you do it? This a bit, because there's a lot of ideas you have and I think they're great, but I'm just a bit lost in how it's actually going to be achieved.
Mm-hmm. I personally believe that if a board member is not up to doing their job, that they should that we should rediscuss their position on the board, as harsh of a conversation that may be, because a board is a board and we are a team. And if someone can't help our team and it's a visible issue to everyone, so a conversation needs to take place and a rediscussion needs to take place where so it's going to be either we're doing something wrong or they're doing something wrong. And that discussion really needs to be pretty serious, and we would probably need to put our foot down on that, because it's really important to make sure that everyone on board is on the same page with our missions and our goals. And if someone isn't, I find that then it's harder on the whole board, and it's just and gonna end up being dead weight that the whole board is going to have to pull.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. So we're gonna wrap it up after this one last quick question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask a quick question about your guys' time commitments for next year, since especially knowing that both of you will be going into your junior years in chemical engineering and mechanical engineering. How do you plan on juggling that with all the other stuff you have going on? Like, so if you do end up getting the SASE PVP positions along with other extracurriculars, other research positions, Chae, I know you mentioned KSA, how do you just plan on balancing all of that?
Yeah, so this year actually I was very busy. I did school, but I also was working 2 jobs to support myself financially, and then I was also an officer to 2 boards. However, next year I realized that this year was extremely tough on me. Even though I was able to get everything done, I was struggling a lot. And so I realized that next year I ran for this position because I want to put everything into this position. And so I've planned already on not rerunning for KSA. And I am also going to quit one of my jobs and just have a research position. And that way my schedule will be a lot more free. Even though I have a lot harder coursework, I've already showed to myself this year, like, I can handle it. I can do this. I can really put my effort into this. So I hope that was able to convince you or answer your question.
For me, so with my course load, I did PSEO for 2 years, my junior, senior year in high school. So I was able to take care of a lot of those prereq classes, which meant I could take some of the classes from my junior year to this year, sophomore year, to be able to lighten the load. So I think that for next year, I won't have as much as a rigorous load as expected of junior mecha students. And also, I don't plan to hold a job or some research positions, so I would be able to dedicate my full time to extracurriculars, which would only be SASE in my case.
All right, thank you guys for your presentation and for your answers. And thank you everyone in the audience for listening. And I'm gonna bring the other 2 back into the meeting. And okay, so just a reminder that the voting link will be sent out at 6, so in half an hour. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to reach out to the candidates individually and ask them. We want to make sure all your questions are answered before you make a decision to vote for who will be the next president and vice president of SASE next year. Yeah, make sure to vote before by the end of April 12th, Sunday, because the ballot will close at 11:59 p.m. And anything else? Oh yes, plug, vote for, or no, don't. Yes, vote for this, but also apply for SASE Board next year too. I think it's a really fun place, as you can see from both these candidates' presentations. It's a place of really passionate people who really care about what they're doing, really fun people, really smart people, and it would be really great to have you guys join us and our SASE fam. All right, thank you guys for attending, and feel free to leave whenever, or reach out to us if you have any questions. All right, thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.